Hello, my name is Margot. I want to tell you about my journey, how I learned English step by step. I was not born in an English-speaking country. I didn't grow up with English movies or books, but I knew one thing. I wanted to learn. So, I began with the smallest steps, and step by step I moved forward. When I started with just one word a day, I remember sitting on my bed one evening with a small notepad in my hand. The room was quiet and the window was half open. A soft breeze moved the curtain slowly, and in that quiet moment, I felt something new growing inside me, a tiny hope. I wanted to learn English. I didn't know where to begin, but I knew I had to begin somewhere. That day I made a promise to myself. I would learn one English word a day. Just one. Not 10, not 20, not even 5. Just one. At first it felt too small. Could one word really make a difference? But then I thought about it again. One word a day meant 30 words in a month. In a year, it would be over 300. That sounded like something big. That night, I looked through a children's English book and picked my first word, sun. It was simple. It was familiar. I wrote it down on the first page of my notebook in big letters, S-U-N. The next morning, I got up and looked at the word again. Sun, I whispered to myself. I pointed outside and said, "The sun is bright." I opened the curtain and said it again, "Hello, sun?" It made me laugh. But deep inside, I felt proud. I had used my first English word in a sentence. I knew it was just the beginning, but it was something. The next day, I picked the word water. I drank a glass of water and said, "This is water." I washed my hands and said, "Water is cold." I watered my plants and smiled. This wasn't like school. This wasn't homework. This was me playing with language like a child does. It felt natural. It felt light. And that's how it started. Day by day, one word at a time. I bought small sticky notes and wrote the word of the day on them. I would place one on the bathroom mirror, one on the fridge, one inside my phone case. The word followed me everywhere I went. If I forgot the word, I would see it again and remember. That small piece of paper kept me focused. Some days the word was easy, like cat, tree, or food. Other days I picked a word that was new or strange. Quiet. Windy, early. I didn't just memorize it. I played with it, I used it. I made funny sentences with it. I said it out loud. I sang it, I whispered it. I even spoke to my dog in English. Good dog. You like food? Sometimes my brother laughed at me. He would peek into my room and say, "Talking to yourself again, Margot?" I would laugh too, but I didn't stop. I knew this silly little habit was doing something special inside me. After a few weeks, I started to notice a change. Words began to stay in my memory. When I saw something, I started to think of its English name first. I would see a bird and the word would come to me quickly. I would see shoes at the door, and I would say in my mind, "These are shoes." I still couldn't make big sentences. I didn't understand English movies or songs. But now English didn't feel like a stranger. It was slowly becoming a friend. One day, I decided to make things a little more fun. I made a word jar. Every time I learned a new word, I wrote it on a piece of paper, folded it, and dropped it into the jar. At the end of the week, I pulled out 10 words and tested myself. Could I use them in a sentence? Could I remember their meaning without checking? Some weeks were harder than others, but I kept going. Then something surprising happened. I began to see those words in real life. I would walk past a shop, and the word open on the sign matched the word I learned 2 days before. I saw "thank you" on a receipt and smiled. I had learned that just last week. The world around me was filled with English, and now I could notice it. This gave me more energy, more joy. I began writing simple diary entries using my daily word. Today's word, cold. So I wrote, "Today it is cold." I drank hot tea. My hands were cold too. It wasn't perfect, but it made me proud. It felt like I was building a small bridge between my thoughts and the English language. But as the number of words grew, I felt a small problem. I had more words, but I wasn't sure how to use them naturally. I could say apple, eat, and happy, but how do people really talk? How do sentences flow together? How do people sound in real English? That question kept repeating in my mind. Then one evening, I was sitting on the couch with my phone. I felt tired and I wanted to relax. So I opened YouTube and searched for a cartoon I liked as a child. I found it in English, with English subtitles. I thought, why not try this? Maybe I can understand a few words. I pressed play, and in just the first 2 minutes, I heard one of my learned words. The cartoon character said, "It's a sunny day." My heart jumped. I knew that word, sunny. I had learned that weeks ago. I repeated it softly. "It's a sunny day." I watched her face, her hands, her smile. I read the subtitle at the bottom. Everything made sense for a moment. That was the moment everything changed. I realized that hearing words, seeing them, and reading them together made them stronger in my mind. I could see how the words were used naturally. I could hear the tone, the rhythm. I could even catch the feeling in the voice. That night, I didn't stop at just one video. I watched 2 more. I picked short episodes. I paused often. I repeated the sentences. I even wrote them in my notebook under the words I had already learned. I had taken the first step, learning words one by one. But now it was time to hear those words come alive in real conversations. It was time to see them move, smile, and feel something. So from that day on, I made a new rule for myself. 1 word a day, and 1 short English video a day with subtitles. And that is where my journey took the next big step. 2. I watched English shows with subtitles. After that evening with the cartoon video, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had heard words I knew, seen them in real sentences, and suddenly everything felt alive. It was like finding the missing piece of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve with only the corner pieces. Learning 1 word a day had built my foundation. But now I realized something very important. Words are not enough. I needed to see them being used. I needed to hear them, feel them, and experience them in action. That night, something inside me changed. I knew I was ready for more. The next morning, before I even brushed my hair, I picked up my phone and searched for simple English shows with subtitles. I didn't want anything long or difficult, just something friendly, something fun. I found a channel that had short scenes from a family comedy. The title said English Subtitles, Beginner Friendly. I smiled. That was perfect for me. I made tea, sat on the edge of my bed, and pressed play. It started with a mom and daughter having breakfast. The daughter said, "I'm hungry." The mom replied, "You should eat your eggs." Right there, 2 new phrases entered my mind. "I'm hungry, you should." I paused the video and repeated the sentence out loud. "I'm hungry. You should eat." I liked the sound of it. I liked how natural it felt. I played the sentence again. Then I copied the tone. I mimicked the voice, the way the mom said eggs with a soft smile. I grabbed my notebook, the same one where I wrote my 1 word a day list, and I wrote the whole sentence this time. Not just 1 word. "I'm hungry. You should eat your eggs." I underlined should. That word felt important. I had never used it before. That day, I watched the 5-minute clip 3 times. Each time I heard something new. A word I missed before. a joke I didn't understand the first time, a little smile that made the sentence clearer. By the end of the day, I had written down 5 complete sentences and underlined 3 new words. The next day, I picked another video. This one had a young man ordering coffee. He said, "Can I get a latte, please?" The cashier answered, "Sure. That'll be $5? I paused and laughed. That phrase, "can I get," was everywhere, I realized. I had always thought people said, "may I have," like in school English. But here was something different, real, casual, useful. I began writing small notes next to my sentences. Used in coffee shops, polite but friendly. Say it with a smile. I wasn't just learning English anymore, I was living it. Over the next few weeks, this became a part of my daily life. I watched one short video every morning. Some days I had more time, so I watched 2 or 3. Other days I watched while eating lunch. I didn't make it a rule. I made it a habit, and what a beautiful habit it became. At first I stuck with beginner shows. Simple vocabulary, slow speech, clear subtitles. But slowly I started trying cartoons again, then cooking shows, then travel vlogs. I found a series where a man visits small towns in America and talks about food. His English was fast, but the subtitles helped me keep up. I wrote down what he said. "This burger is insane. You've got to try this. Look at that!" These weren't textbook phrases, but they were alive with feeling. I wanted to talk like that. I started practicing the lines. I would pause the video and repeat each sentence 3 times. I stood in front of the mirror and said it like the host said it. I paid attention to the way his mouth moved, the way his eyebrows lifted, the way he laughed at his own words. It felt like I was part of the show. Sometimes I would imagine I was a host too. I'd look at my sandwich and say in English, "Look at this. This is my lunch." I'd hold up my tea and say, "You've got to try this." It was silly, but it made me smile. And most importantly, it made me remember. I wasn't just learning English. I was learning to sound like someone who actually spoke it. Then one day, something amazing happened. I was watching a scene from a movie. A woman was talking to her friend. She said, "I'm not sure I can do this." Her voice cracked. Her eyes looked sad. I suddenly understood, not just the words, but the feeling. I didn't need to pause. I didn't need to check a dictionary. I felt the sentence. I felt her fear, her doubt. And I whispered it softly, "I'm not sure I can do this." It echoed in my room. And I thought, I had said that sentence before, in real life, in French. I had felt that same thing. That's when I realized English was no longer just a subject. It was a way to feel, to express, to connect. Every video I watched helped me see a different piece of the language. Some taught me how to ask for directions. Some showed me how to say sorry. Some were full of laughter. Others made me cry. But each one gave me something new. I also began noticing how subtitles worked. I paid attention to sentence structure, punctuation, and even how pauses were written. A comma meant a quick breath. A period meant a full stop. A long line like showed a break in thought. It taught me not only how to speak, but how to listen. I started repeating entire conversations out loud, one line at a time, like this. Character A, "Hey, how was your day?" Character B, "Pretty good. Yours?" Character A, "Not bad." I had a lot of work. I would pause and take both parts. I'd say them with different voices, like I was acting. It felt like a game, but I was learning real conversation flow. I was building rhythm. Sometimes, after finishing a video, I closed my eyes and tried to repeat the full scene from memory. I didn't remember every word, but I remembered the feeling, the emotion, The music of the sentence. That's when I realized English is not just words. It's music. It's tone. It's feeling. I started paying attention to body language too. When people said, "I don't know," they often shrugged their shoulders. When they said, "Of course," they smiled and nodded. When someone said, "I'm sorry," their eyes softened. I began copying that too, in the mirror, alone, quietly. Sometimes I'd act out full scenes. I'd pretend I was in a coffee shop or at the airport or meeting a friend. I'd practice lines like, "Hi, my name is Margot. Nice to meet you. Can I help you? I'll take a coffee, please." It felt like rehearsing for life. And in a way it was, because all those hours of watching and listening and repeating and feeling were preparing me for the real world, for real conversations, for real people. But I wasn't there yet. Even after watching so many shows, I still hadn't spoken to anyone in English. Not a real person. Not out loud. I had practiced alone. I had learned silently, but the idea of actually talking to someone still made my heart race. One evening, I watched a video where two girls were practicing English together. They laughed at their mistakes. They corrected each other. They looked happy. I thought to myself, maybe it's time. Maybe I need someone to talk to too. So I searched for English language partners online. I joined a website where people practice languages together. It took some time, but finally I found someone. Her name was Isla. She was from New York. She wanted to learn French. And I wanted to learn English. We agreed to help each other. I still remember the first message she sent me. "Hi, Margot. I'm so excited to learn together." Her words were warm and friendly. I typed back slowly. "Hello, Isla. I'm happy to speak with you." I forgot the am, but she didn't laugh. She just said, "You're doing great." And it's "I am happy." I smiled. And just like that, my English journey took another big step. I had learned words. I had watched them come alive in videos. Now it was time to speak them with a real person. 3. I spoke out loud even when I was alone. After that first message from Isla, something inside me changed. Reading her friendly reply made me feel warm, but it also made me nervous. I realized that I had done everything around speaking, learning words, watching videos, writing sentences, repeating after shows, but I had never truly spoken English, like a real conversation. Not out loud, not fully. Not from my own mouth in my own voice. When Isla sent a voice note the next day, my hands started to sweat. Her voice was clear and natural. She said, "Hi, Margot. I'm so happy to hear your voice when you're ready." "No pressure." I wanted to reply with confidence, but my throat felt dry. I held my phone, stared at the record button, and froze. What if I said something wrong? What if I sounded strange? What if she laughed? I sat on the edge of my bed and told myself, "You've come this far. You know the words. You've heard the sentences. Now it's time to let them out." But I couldn't press record. Not yet, so I made a quiet plan with myself. I will practice speaking out loud, alone, every day, until I feel ready. That night, I turned off my lights, looked at the ceiling, and whispered softly, "Hello, Isla. My name is Margot. I am happy to talk with you." Just that. Just one small sentence. It felt strange at first, hearing myself say the words out loud in English. My voice sounded different. The rhythm wasn't smooth, but it was mine, and that was enough. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at myself and said, "Hi, I'm Margot. I live in France. I'm learning English." I repeated it again, then again. I tried different tones, Happy, calm, a little shy. I smiled at myself and added more. I like reading. I like chocolate. I like speaking English. I laughed after that sentence. It felt like I was playing a game, but it was also something very real. I was giving myself permission to use the language. Over the next few days, I made it a morning routine. After brushing my teeth, I would look in the mirror and talk to myself in English. Just 2 or 3 minutes. I didn't care about grammar. I didn't care about mistakes. The goal was simple: speak out loud. Every day. Soon, speaking out loud became more natural. I started talking while doing simple tasks. In the kitchen, I said, "I am making tea. This is a spoon. The water is hot." While getting dressed, I said, "I like this shirt. These pants are blue. My shoes are under the bed." The English words flowed with my actions, and somehow it started to feel normal. No one was listening. No one was judging. It was just me and my voice, and that gave me freedom. Sometimes I would walk around the house and describe everything I saw. This is a chair. It's brown. The table is big. There are 4 plates. I'd talk to my dog and say, "Hello, buddy. You are a good dog. Do you want food?" He didn't understand the words, but I did. And that was what mattered. At first, I was still shy about my accent. I knew I sounded French when I said English words. Sometimes I repeated the same sentence 10 times just to sound a little smoother. I would say, "Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you?" Over and over until it felt soft in my mouth, until it felt like mine. Then one day I recorded my voice. Just a simple sentence. "Hello, my name is Margot. I'm learning English." I listened to it. I didn't like how I sounded. My voice felt too stiff, too slow. But I didn't delete it. I kept it. The next day I recorded another one. Then another. Each time I improved a little. I spoke a bit louder, a bit clearer, a bit more confident. After a week, I listened to my first recording again. And I realized something surprising. I had improved. My voice had changed. The rhythm was better. The tone was warmer. That made me feel strong. I created a small folder on my phone and named it English Voice. It became my personal space for practice. I didn't share it with anyone, not even Isla, but it became my way to track my growth, my sound, my courage. There were also moments when I doubted myself. One afternoon, I tried to say a sentence I heard in a movie. "Would you like something to drink?" But the words tangled in my mouth. I said, Would you like something to..." I stopped. I felt frustrated. I knew the words. I had heard them many times. But now speaking them together felt impossible. I dropped my phone on the bed and sighed. Then I remembered something I had seen in a video. The host said, "When you can't speak it, sing it." So I tried. I made a little tune and sang softly, "Would you like something to drink?" And suddenly, it flowed. I laughed. It worked. After that, whenever a sentence felt too hard, I sang it first. Then I spoke it. It helped my brain and my tongue connect. In the evenings, I began practicing small dialogues with myself. "Hi, can I help you?" "Yes, I'm looking for a book." "What kind of book?" "A storybook." In English. Sometimes I wrote these dialogues down first, then practiced them in front of the mirror. I played both parts. I changed my voice a little for each character. It was fun. It was powerful. These solo conversations became my training ground, a place where I could try, fail, laugh, and try again, without fear. Then one evening, I was in the kitchen making pasta. The sauce was boiling, and I looked out the window and said, "It's a beautiful evening." The words came without thinking. Smooth, natural, not forced. I froze for a second and thought, did I just say that in English without planning it? Yes, I had. That moment stayed in my heart. It was small, but it meant everything. It told me that my daily speaking practice was working. English wasn't something outside me anymore. It was becoming part of my thoughts. That same week, I started using English to think through my day. What do I need from the store? Eggs, milk, bread. Don't forget your keys. Tomorrow is Monday. I didn't say everything out loud, but the voice in my head had started switching from French to English. And that was magic. Eventually, I felt ready. I opened my messages, found Isla's chat, and tapped on the microphone. My hand shook a little, but I smiled and said, "Hi, Isla, this is Margot. I'm happy to talk with you today." Then I paused and pressed send. She replied minutes later with, "Your English is beautiful. You sound great. Let's talk more." That night, I went to sleep with the biggest smile on my face. Speaking out loud, first alone, then to a friend, had changed everything. But I knew there was more. I had spoken to myself. I had sent voice notes. Now, it was time to practice real conversations. Not just scripted ones, not just alone. Real, open talking with another person. Lev. The next part of my journey was just beginning. 4. I found a friend to practice with. After I sent my first voice message to Isla, I felt proud of myself in a way I hadn't felt in years. Her kind reply boosted my confidence more than I expected. She didn't laugh. She didn't correct me harshly. She didn't even point out that I had paused a little too long or said the word talk instead of speak. She simply smiled through her words and encouraged me to keep going. It was the first time I had used English with someone in real life, and though it was just a short recording, it made something inside me come alive. That night, I lay in bed and replayed our short voice exchange again and again. I closed my eyes and imagined talking to her in a real room, sitting across from each other with coffee, chatting about simple things. I imagined her asking me, "How was your day?" and me smiling back and saying, "It was nice. I went to the park." It was a simple dream, but it gave me a purpose. The next morning, I woke up early, even before my alarm. I couldn't wait to talk to Isla again. I spent 15 minutes standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing different things I might want to say. I like chocolate. Do you have a cat? What do you do for work? I repeated them softly, practicing my tone, trying not to sound like I was reading from a script. When Isla's voice message arrived, she asked, "Would you like to try a short call this weekend?" My heart jumped. A real call? With voice? In English? I almost said no. My fingers hovered over the keyboard ready to type. Maybe not yet. But then I remembered all the practice I had done alone, talking to the mirror, whispering while cooking, even singing English sentences to myself. I told myself, "Margot, this is your moment. You've built this foundation. Now walk on it." So I replied, yes, I would love to try. Saturday came quickly. I was nervous the whole morning. I picked my clothes carefully, even though it was just an audio. I still wanted to feel good. I brushed my hair, cleaned my room, and sat near the window with the best light and the quietest background. When the call button rang, I took one deep breath and answered. "Hello, Margot." Isla's voice was warm, like sunshine on a spring morning. "Hello, Isla," I said, my voice shaking just a little. But she didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and she chose to be kind about it. We started talking slowly. She asked easy questions. "How are you today?" "What did you eat for breakfast?" "What's the weather like?" I answered each one carefully, using the words I had practiced so many times before. I ate eggs and bread, I said. It's sunny here in France today. I feel good. And a little scared. She laughed gently at that last part. You're doing great, Margot. I can understand everything. Those words wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket. It wasn't perfect English, but it was understood. And that meant the world. That first call only lasted 15 minutes. But it changed me. It changed the way I saw myself. I was no longer just a learner. I was a speaker, a communicator. I had shared a real conversation with someone across the world. And I had done it in English. After that, Isla and I made it a weekly habit. Every Saturday afternoon, we talked for 20 to 30 minutes. She would speak slowly and clearly. If I didn't understand something, I'd say, "Can you say that again, please?" And she always did, patiently, without judgment. If I made a mistake, she didn't stop me right away. She let me finish, then gently corrected me. It was never sharp. It was soft, friendly, like a real friend would do. Over time, I became more relaxed. I started asking her questions too. What is your favorite movie? Do you cook at home? Do you like French music? Our conversations grew richer. I wasn't just giving answers, I was sharing thoughts, opinions, feelings. I was using English not just to learn, but to connect. We began to play little games. One week, we chose a topic like food or travel and talked only about that for the whole session. Another week, we tried role-playing. She pretended to be a shopkeeper and I was the customer. Good afternoon, I would say. Do you sell chocolate cake? Yes, she'd answer. Would you like a slice or the whole cake? A slice, please. Here you go. That will be $3. These little games made the language fun. I forgot about grammar rules. I forgot about fear. I focused on speaking and understanding, on laughing and learning together. Soon, I noticed something strange and beautiful. I wasn't translating from French to English in my head anymore. I was thinking directly in English. When Isla asked, "What did you do today?" my answer didn't come in French first. It came as, "I went to the market. I bought some fruit." And I didn't have to pause. I didn't have to search. It was just there. That small change meant a lot. My mind had started to trust the language. One Saturday, Isla said something I will never forget. "You're speaking more like a native now, Margot. You sound so natural." I didn't know how to reply. I just said, "Really?" and laughed. But in my heart, I felt tears. Happy ones. Because I had come so far from that quiet girl, whispering sun and water, to herself in her bedroom. After a few months, I told Isla I wanted to practice with other people too. Not because I was leaving her, no, never, but because I wanted to push myself further. She supported me 100%. You should try language exchange apps, she said. There are so many nice people out there. So I made a profile on a popular app for language learners. I wrote, "Hi, I'm Margot. I'm from France. I'm learning English and can help with French. Let's practice." The response was fast. I got messages from people in the US, Canada, India, the Philippines, even Japan. It felt like opening a door and seeing the whole world waiting on the other side. Of course, not every conversation turned into a deep friendship. Some chats were short. Some people disappeared after 2 days. But that was okay. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for practice. And little by little, I found more friends to speak with. I made a list of conversation starters to help me when I didn't know what to say. What's your favorite book? What's your dream vacation? What do you eat for breakfast? These small questions opened big doors. Some days I spoke with 3 different people, other days just one. But every single time, I learned something new. A new word, a new expression, a new way of saying something I already knew. And more than that, I learned about people. I learned that English was not just a subject, it was a tool for understanding lives, cultures, stories. Through it, I traveled across oceans without leaving my room. But speaking with friends also showed me something else. I didn't need to be perfect. One of my new friends, Diego from Mexico, told me, "I used to be afraid too, but now I just speak. Mistakes are part of the journey." That line stayed with me. So I stopped worrying so much. I stopped checking my sentences twice before speaking. I stopped holding my breath every time I made a small mistake. I started enjoying the sound of my own voice in English. Some evenings I would end a conversation and sit quietly, smiling at my reflection. I had just spent 45 minutes speaking only in English. Me, Margot, the girl who once froze at the sound of her own voice. The girl who started with just 1 word a day. Now I had real friends from around the world, real conversations, real laughter, and with each person I spoke to, I felt my world growing bigger and my fear growing smaller. But the journey wasn't over. One night, I looked at my bookshelf and smiled. It was time to try something new. Something I had been afraid of for a long time. It was time to speak English. Everywhere I went. Not just with friends online, not just in the mirror, but in my daily life. 5. I made English part of my life every day. After months of learning words, watching shows with subtitles, speaking to myself out loud, and practicing with friends like Isla and Diego, I started to feel something shift inside me. English was no longer just something I practiced. It was something I began to live. Slowly, quietly, without realizing it, I had been inviting the language into the small corners of my life. And now it was time to take one final, powerful step. I would make English part of my life every single day. It began with a simple idea. What if I didn't wait for practice time anymore? What if English wasn't something I did only in the morning or before bed? What if I could bring it with me, everywhere? So, one Monday morning, I tried something new. Instead of opening my French news app while eating breakfast, I opened an English one. The words felt fast, the headlines even faster, but I tried anyway. I read slowly. I tapped on a story about a woman who opened a bakery in her town. I read the first 2 paragraphs and only understood half. But I didn't give up. I looked up the new words, wrote down 3 in my notebook, and said them out loud while chewing my toast. Entrepreneur, recipe, success. I smiled. That was how I began that day, with English at the table beside me. Later, while folding laundry, I kept my phone nearby and played a short English podcast. It was a beginner-level story about someone getting lost in a city. I had heard these kinds of stories before, but this time, I was doing something else while listening. I didn't sit and focus. I moved. I listened with my hands full and my mind partly focused on the story. And yet, I still learned. That's when I realized that English didn't always need a chair and a notebook. Sometimes it just needed my ears. My attention, my presence. That evening, I was cleaning the kitchen and caught myself saying, "These plates are clean. This spoon is wet. I will dry it now." It surprised me. I hadn't planned to speak. I hadn't forced myself. It just came, naturally, softly, like a quiet friend whispering in my mind. I had been speaking English to myself for months, but now it was happening during chores, during walks, even in the shower. I began to narrate my life in English. and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The more I did it, the more it became a habit. When I looked out the window, I said, "The sky is gray. It might rain." When I sat down to write, I thought, "Let me take my pen. I will write about today." When I bumped into a chair, I laughed and said, "Oops, sorry, chair." I was no longer translating from French. I was thinking in English, living in it, moving inside of it. It had stopped being a guest in my life. It had become my roommate, my partner, my companion. And once I understood that, I made a plan. I called it the 10 English Moments, 10 small parts of my day where I would include English, no matter what. Here's how I did it. 1. Morning news in English, even if I didn't understand everything. 2. 1 short English sentence out loud while brushing my teeth. 3. Reading labels or instructions in English if available. 4. Writing 1 English sentence in my daily journal. 5. Sending a short message in English to a language partner. 6. Watching or listening to 1 short video or podcast in English. 7. Thinking in English during a short walk. 8. Singing along to an English song. 9. Saying goodnight to myself in English. 10. Speaking 1 full thought aloud at the end of the day, just for me. At first, it felt like a challenge, but soon it became routine. And once it became routine, it turned into something deeper, a lifestyle. I began labeling things in my home with English sticky notes again, just like I did in the beginning. Only now I didn't need to look at them to remember the words. I did it just to feel surrounded by English. The fridge had the word cold on it. The door said open and close. My mirror had the word smile. These little reminders weren't about memory anymore. They were about belonging. And the more I surrounded myself, the more I began to feel like English belonged to me. I even changed the settings on my phone and laptop to English. It was scary at first. I had to search for basic things like volume, calendar, brightness. But after a few days, I didn't even notice. I started reading notifications in English, replying to emails with English greetings, and using apps in English without second guessing. My digital world had shifted and my brain followed. I even found ways to use English outside the house. I lived in France, yes, but that didn't mean I couldn't find chances. I searched for English-speaking meetups in my area. At first, they were online. Then I found 1 local event, a language exchange evening at a nearby cafe. I almost didn't go. I sat at home that night wearing my jacket, holding my phone and thinking, "You're not ready." But another voice inside me whispered, "You are ready. You've been ready." So I walked to the cafe. When I arrived, I saw small groups gathered around tables, laughing, holding coffee, chatting in many languages. I stood near the door, unsure what to do. Then a girl with glasses waved at me and said, "Hi, you here for the language night?" I nodded. "Yes. I am Margot." "Nice to meet you. Come join us," she smiled. I sat down. The conversation was easy at first. Names, cities, hobbies. Then we talked about books and food. I made mistakes. I forgot a word here and there. I paused a few times, but I didn't feel embarrassed. The people around me weren't perfect either. We all came for the same reason: to try, to grow, to connect. That evening, I walked home with a full heart. I had used English outside my safe space, in the real world, and it had felt natural. From that day forward, I looked for small ways to use English in everyday places. At the market, I whispered in my head, "I need 2 apples, 1 lemon, and some bread." On the bus, I looked at signs and thought about how I'd explain them in English. Next stop, Central Station. Please get ready. In line at the bank, I listened to the people around me and silently translated their words into English in my mind. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present. And slowly, the fear I used to feel, the tightness in my chest, the nervous energy when I had to say something in English, it disappeared. I could speak freely now. I could express myself. I could even joke in English. One day, I was messaging with Isla, and she sent me a meme in English. It was a silly joke about cats and pizza. And for the first time, I laughed, not because I translated it, but because I actually understood the joke. The feeling of the humor, the play in the language. That was a new kind of fluency. That day, I realized I was no longer someone who was learning English. I was someone who lives with English. It was part of me, like my favorite sweater or the songs I hum when I cook. It was in my thoughts, in my habits, in my routines. English had become the way I listened to the world and the way I shared my own. And the best part? This journey never really ends. Even now, I keep learning. I still make mistakes. I still find new words, but I never feel afraid anymore. Because I made English part of my life every single day, and that made all the difference. If you had met me a year ago, you would have seen a quiet girl in a small town in France, whispering the word son to herself with a notebook in her lap and a heart full of doubt. I remember sitting on my bed, staring at English, subtitles, and trying to copy how cartoon characters moved their mouths. I remember the shaky voice message I sent to Isla and the way I stood in front of my mirror every morning, repeating sentences until they felt like mine. I didn't grow up speaking English. I didn't have native speakers around me. I didn't go to school in an English-speaking country. But I had a desire, a deep, strong desire to connect. I wanted to understand songs. I wanted to read stories without translation. I wanted to travel and speak without fear. I wanted to share my thoughts in another language and know that I was truly heard. And so I started, one word at a time, one small step. No magic, no shortcuts. Each point in my journey built the next. When I learned just one word a day, I began to understand meaning. When I watched shows with subtitles, I saw how words turned into real speech. When I spoke out loud alone, I found the rhythm of my own English voice. When I practiced with friends, I opened the door to real conversations. And when I made English part of my everyday life, I finally felt like a real speaker, not just a learner. I still remember the day I went to that language exchange event at the cafe. The moment I stood at the door, nervous but excited, wondering if I belonged there. And when I sat down and spoke my first full sentence to a stranger in English, and they smiled and replied, it felt like the world opened up to me. English for me has never just been about vocabulary or grammar. It's been about courage, growth, curiosity. It has taught me how to be patient with myself, how to celebrate small wins, and how to believe in progress, even when it feels slow. There were days I felt stuck, days I thought I was too late, days I questioned if I would ever be fluent. But every time I reminded myself, even a single word is a step. Now when I watch a movie in English without subtitles, when I laugh at a joke in a podcast, or when I reply to a message from a friend across the world, I feel something powerful. I feel free. I feel brave. I feel connected. If you are where I once was, starting with fear, with silence, with just one word, I want you to know this. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You only need to begin. Your English journey is not measured by how fast you learn, but by how deeply you live it. Bring it into your day. Speak it out loud. Watch it, hear it, feel it. Make mistakes, laugh, try again. And most importantly, Keep going. Because one day, just like me, you'll look back and realize you didn't just learn English. You became someone who speaks it, with confidence, with joy, and with heart. And that's the most beautiful kind of fluency there is.